All right, guys. Very excited to be, discussing this with you. So, in my, I would say, memory, I think about some of the technologies which I have seen, and every time I got excited, I went and tried it myself, and then something happened. So, these technologies like maker movement or VR, AR, I still remember Sergey presenting, and so much being written about media, IoT. In fact, I was part of it. I even consulted with Intel when I was working, and of course I owned the devices. Then of course voice enabled devices. There was a period when people were making apps for Amazon and Alexa, and there was Uber and and everything, more and more things being connected, and a lot of startups got big funding. And of course, during COVID, we saw Clubhouse and a bunch of other, voice-enabled social platforms. And since I have closely worked with DAOs, because my company Lomads makes tooling for DAOs for financial and operation management, so I have seen the, ups and downs there. So I often ask this question. I mean, like, yeah, first of all, in all these cases, when things come in, it's everybody is very, very sure. And so the question that I ask is, what happened around these times? These technologies around the time when these guys became popular, and what is happening now with these technologies and movements. So I would like to hear your thoughts on these questions, if you have any. Max, Maria, do you have anything? Like, just do you remember some of these things that I spoke about, or I mean, just
Yeah,
curious.
I am just going to quote you, saying that we are overconfident and say, wow, this is it. Uh, we've reached the top and then we moved on. Just like with the AI today, in the morning I was in an AI event.
Mhm. Max, do you have any thoughts? Do you remember like which of these technologies you really thought, wow, man, this is gonna be game changer?
I think people thought VR was very exciting. IoT had so much buzz about it. IoT is basically nothing. I mean, I think it's just sensor technology. Basically, I think people roll technology into things. Like AI became really sexy the last year with ChatGPT, and I feel like AI is just part of everything. So if you go to a VC and you say, "Oh, I've got AI in this," that was a point where there was like a big deal. Now it's like, well, if you don't have AI in it and it's not inbuilt, then it's irrelevant.
Yeah, because the time around the time when IoT came, there was prediction that by 2020 there will be 50 billion devices, and before Google came into it, there were Nest and so many startups, and they were building infrastructure for it, and like interoperability was a big thing, and I has really closely followed this, mapping the landscape. So my thesis is that there is nothing wrong with these technologies, and they are very, very potent technologies, and they do change our lives, but at a different pace. So there is a hype around it when we kind of come to expect so much more than it can deliver in a specific time frame. So they stay, and development is happening, and this is something I thought happens again and again. So there is this emergence, that narrative for the next disruption emerges, and analysts will immediately publish glowing future predictions about it. Then it goes into the amplification phase, where there's a surge in the coverage by media and at conferences. People start talking about it, and then the most important things, VCs fund. And when VCs fund, they always have exponential expectations about the growth, and that's how people like to present, and that's why, and that's the whole point of venture capital funding. And this just goes on and on till after, let's say, 1 or 2 years. You have the reckoning, which is user adoption, retention, fails to meet expectations and interest wanes, and something next comes up. So the technology stays, in every cycle such as this, there are often, a handful of, people standing or big corporations taking over, and they continue to, build it. As you see in case of smartwatch, Fitbit is gone, and so many other smartwatches, startups and Kickstarter projects which came, they are like either very small, or they are almost eradicated, and some big guys are standing. Similarly, in IoT, Google took over Nest, and and there are still applications in agriculture, and in warehouses and stuff, but it's not sexy, or like you see lots of things being written about it. So the question is, yeah. So I mean, like, since I closely worked with DAOs, and I don't know, like Maria and Max, like, did you guys follow DAOs like over the past 1.5 year? I mean, of course, Maria, you're part of Vita DAO, I suppose, right? But then, did you
Yeah,
generally?
yeah. Well, Nishan, yeah. Before we named ourselves Desire, we were Saidao, and
Hmm.
we are still grouped as a community, as a DAO. Um, so we are following these and testing all the tools that the DAOs have to offer.
But do you know, like, there is another conference almost running in this week called DAO, and one of the topics is like DAO's beginning, death, and resurrection. Very very interesting topic, and like, and if you talk to any of the tooling, they would say that it's the market is very slow right now. The number of DAOs, new DAOs which are coming in, is very few. Is actually very few. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, like what was happening. Otherwise, I have, of course, some pointers here, like what was possibly wrong with the way we DAO'd, over the past 1.5 years, let's say.
So I have a lot of thoughts on this. Sorry, my son just woke up. So I think people were using DAOs for absolutely everything, and none of them made sense. I think DAOs only work in a certain capacity. That's one of the biggest problems is that people just try to make.
Everything a DAO, right? Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts? So I'll tell you, like, the things that I kind of thought are, it's they felt it felt that they were trying, most people are trying to reinvent the wheel, come up with coin new terms, not look at what we already see in different kinds of experiments, social experiments, democratic experiments that happened before us. Technology was the front center, and like, and we thought that we'll have a completely new nomenclature and completely new ways of doing this. So that's one of the things. Then chasing the perfect DAO mirage. If you listen to the talks around DAO in 2001 second half, or like 2021, I mean, you would see that people often explain the term decentralized autonomous organization. So everybody is just you know emphasizing that there is this perfect definition of DAO, and sort of our ultimate goal is to become that. That's like sort of that was the I would say the underlying, it seemed that uh, intent. And then I would say that blinded by vision, and it's just the vision is this is the vision, and everything would be decentralized, and there would be no conflicts. The smart contracts will be the ultimate arbitrator of yeah, like value exchange. So it's, and then and it's absolutely disconnected with often reality. So if I talk about the chasing the perfect DAO mirage, you know, so what I found out that there is a whole spectrum. There's all kinds of DAOs. First of all, different goals. Whether you are a associative DAO, which means you are running a association, or you are a generative DAO, with the intent to generate something, or you are an ad hoc DAO. Whether you are early stage, where you are like, it's almost like, where you are an infant or a teenager or a adult, or like an older DAO. So, the needs are very different, and maybe you don't want to become completely decentralized or completely autonomous. Maybe that use case just fits, you know, uh, DeFi. So, I mean, like, instead of DAOs, I mean, I often tend to talk about decentralized collaboration. you know so like, okay, people are spread out. There is no fixed, very prescriptive, hard structure. uh, so yeah, I mean, like, that was one of the things that people thought, that there is a perfect DAO, and you just fit into it, or you just go home, and don't call yourself DAO, sort of that. And of course, complexity, and usability. There would be so much discussions around complex forms of governance, or like, everything has to be on chain. If it's not on chain, it does not mean anything. Or even about tokenomics, and it drove a lot of people away, because people often confuse that the discussions which were about very mature DAOs, uh, you know uh, I mean, they didn't hold true for a lot of early stage DAOs, but I mean, like, it just felt that the discussions around DAO were that, and it drove people away from DAOs. So that was, these are some of the things I thought, which I observed, really turn people off. And of course, the problem of account abstraction, that like, the whole thing about coming making having a wallet, and having different kinds of interfaces which does not connect with our seamlessly with our social channels, anyways, causes hindrance. So these were some of the things. So now, I mean, like, with this in background, if you think about it, in DeSci also, perhaps you might see, in some form or the other, some of these things happening, like, this is the perfect or ideal DeSci state, or like, or everything, in terms of organization that we are doing should be new, and stuff like that. So that's the question that we ask is, imagine it's 2 years from now, and DeSci has not met its goal. Okay, what could be the potential reasons for its failure? And this is the most important question we want to answer today. uh, because if we acknowledge that some of the problems that we see today in the industry, uh, in the domain, um, then perhaps we can fix them. And I would like to know your thoughts about these. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I resonate with you with a lot of things, you know. Like we had as humans before, grouped together like in associations and societies, you know. But again, maybe to try to show to others and to yourself that you are creating something new. Maybe you need also new languages, new terms, a little bit different from what you've done before, hopefully better, enhanced, but it's still, maybe we need this new terminology.
I mean, terminology is one aspect. I mean, do you see any problem with the way tooling is approached, or um, or the fact that we don't take into account how the incumbents will react? because when you are making something which is going to disrupt the existing models, then we also should think about how those people are going to react, right? So I just want to know if you have any thoughts on that. So that one is this, and the other one is around tooling and how we approach tool design today.
Well, I think a part of disruption is knowing what you're disrupting, but don't caring too much, because you're disrupting for a reason. You're trying to make things better for people. And tooling, yeah, well, it's new, and you have to learn new things. Don't think there is a way to deal with digital assets, including digital currencies, without opening a wallet, without knowing how to open a wallet, knowing how to receive funds going back. This is new um, learning. And when the banks also turn into digital, you had to learn, isn't it? All our parents and grandparents, they had to learn how to get money from an ATM. I don't know um, if you remember this or if you're around. You look very young for those things, but so we living. It's a process of learning. Okay, so if you don't want to learn, oh, um, you already gone. There is this Greek philosopher Heraclitus. He says the only constant is change. So this guy is 500 before Christ. So he was right. He still is.
No, definitely, what you say does make sense. People have to learn, and things do change. Um, yeah, but this is more about, coming back to the mistakes that we make in technology again and again, get, super optimistic about anything, tend to think in one scenario. There can be multiple scenarios. That's one of the things that, and another scenario is that, DeSci just fizzles off, and publishing companies, kind of,
Yeah.
they take over. Or for example, big pharmaceutical companies, invest indirectly into the projects. So things can happen, right? So one of the things that perhaps people who are leading from the front, they can do is have a scenario mindset, that what are the other possible outcomes. And why I say this, because I had an interesting exercise which I used to do with bigger companies. Let's say if I'm working for a bigger client, an appliances business. So if I'm doing a strategy workshop, then one exercise is that, imagine there is a startup which is going to disrupt your business. So the managers, the top management will imagine a startup or multiple startups which can disrupt their business. Okay, so they're coming up with those ideas, and now they will work backwards on, okay, so now if that startup is coming, then what can we do, right, in order for that future to not happen. So my point here is that, we should have scenario mindset as opposed to just overly optimistic mindset that, it's going to come and have it. The second one is, which I see from the DAO, is embrace evangelism, but balance it with self critique. So if, sometimes we feel reservations about calling out any mistakes with our own domain, right? If you're working in DSI, maybe you do not want to call out something which is unpleasant or something which is not happening correctly. You think, maybe your peers will not take it the right way. So I think that, evangelism is definitely important for, user adoption, for, making inroads into new territories. But I think internally to do better. I think self critique is also important, and we should be open to accepting that. Um, the other thing, as I was talking about DAOs, is that we did not segment well, and tools tried to be everything for everybody, but there is no everybody. If you try to make everybody happy, you will end up making nobody happy. So segmentation is the key here. And like when we talk about DeSci, so there are different domains. Like today, pharmaceutical is one domain which is being disrupted the most, and so acknowledging that these are the segments which will get which are low hanging fruits and which can be disrupted first, as opposed to going for something which is much more difficult. So segmentation, or what kind of universities you can onboard easily, just wherever we are going, being able to slice it thin and seeing the different, like how one segment is different than another, will have help us conquer the territory. And yeah, I would say that, as you were saying, yes, we have to reinvent new term, but I think it's also very important to look back, because we stand at hundreds of years of how organizations works, or how democracies work, how knowledge grows, how knowledge is shared, so some of the fundamentals, they remain same, and it just needs to be adapted for the new reality, like, acknowledge that it's coming from uh, there. I think my video is getting poor. It's just shutting off. So yeah, so this is my uh, last thought here, that it's we should definitely not shy away from learning, from what has happened before us, or what even happens in corporations, because this is with DAOs, that they completely, people often just did not want to discuss the things that we have learned about formal power, informal power, best practices, efficiencies in organization. Uh, these were not the points of discussion, in initial days. Only later, when reality started dawning, that you need a business model, you need to have a goal, and have methods to fairly share the value co-created, then such discussions came. So yeah, so I think, um, I mean, I wanted it to be an interactive discussion with more participants, and especially those who are building for the future. But yeah, like, I'll just summarize what we discussed today, is that like DeSci could be just any other technology that which shines for 2 years, and we speak at conferences, and and there is a huge bump in the social media discussions around it, and then it could be business as usual, and like a handful of projects are there here and there, because none of these technologies, they die. It's just that they go in the background, you know so the thing, the way to conquer is that for us to be more pragmatic, to be more realistic about customer segments, and yeah, and just call out any mistakes in the industry, and not be overly enchanted by venture capitalists, or reports which kind of yeah, exaggerate. So that's all, and thanks, guys. Okay.
Thanks a lot, Nishant. There are some thoughts
Yes. Yes,
that,
please.
yeah, there are some thoughts that they will be used by me as take-home messages. Thank you very much. Just think that uh, maybe this is the way we do things. We cyclical and a very big hype, and then down. Cyclic things. It's like you said, it doesn't mean that they completely disappear, but they went to the background, you know. And I believe, like Max said before, people are scared about the blockchain. When you talk crypto, they say, "Oh God, it's a scam." And you know, from 1 year from now, most financial system is gonna be using blockchain. You will never talk about that again, you know. And maybe this is how it is. But you know, I take dearly what you said, to be careful, and also to learn from the past and maybe use the best from the past. Always evolving, but always keeping in mind that this is we belong to a history line, and we can make better if we know the past. Thanks a lot, Nishan. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for summarizing that, Maria. Really enjoyed my time here, and rest. Have a good rest of the day, guys. Bye bye.